Hi, I'm Danny Whitfield.
And I'm Rhoda Whitfield. And it's time for another segment of Marriage Takes Work.
Hello, and welcome to another segment of Marriage Takes Work. We have a great topic for discussion today, and it's going to be a different one, along with our special guest, Elder Darrick, and First Lady Takia McGhee of the Bible-based Church of Tallahassee, Florida. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Doing
Wonderful.
great. Absolutely.
Wonderful. We're going to address how women can work at communicating better with their husbands so that they listen. We all know that communication is a big issue in marriage, especially when it comes to listening. But today, as men, we are going to attempt to make things easier for our wives.
Today is about getting answers for wives on how to get their husbands to open up and communicate better. There are discussions in a marriage that many people don't like to address and will avoid at all costs in having those difficult discussions. But today we want to discuss how women can communicate better with their husbands so they listen attentively to the wife's heart. So I'm going to be asking the men some questions today, and Takia, I need you to help me out if they are not answering this question to our life.
Satisfaction.
Okay. So, all right, guys. So what should women do in situations when their husbands shut down and doesn't feel that what she wants to discuss is worthy of a discussion?
Well, I'll jump in there real quick.
Thank you.
What should they do? I think when it comes to the part of shutting down, I think there should be a moment of pause, a time of filtering through what they need to address. Not pushy, but time to reflect on why the shutdown. And so I think if we get that point of empathy or you feeling what we're feeling, give us that moment. Shut down don't mean we're gonna always shut you out.
Yeah, that's good.
But we just need that period to sit. Sometimes we have to filter how we're going to come back, or what we need to say. If we say it, if we say it out of not wanting to go into a song and dance with you, it's not going to come out right. But if we have an opportunity for pause, for how we can come back and do it, such that it's conducive to a good conversation rather than something moving to an argument.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing about the moment of pause, right? Because that's necessary. I would also add to it, in that pause, don't always assume the worst, right? Sometimes that pause can be healthy. Don't let it be an unnecessarily long, indefinite pause, but a pause is important because you can't unsay once you say it, right? And so sometimes that pause is necessary, so not to say something you can't take back. But don't assume the worst in that pause. Now, you mentioned about shutting down, and I would, and that's important. I know for me, that was always one of my greatest things is the shutdown, because you quickly go into defense mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I got to protect me, and I'm just going to shut down and shut you out, and there's no need for a conversation. And then, or if there is going to be a conversation, I'm going to dominate this conversation so that you can hear what I have to say. But the pause is healthy. Don't always assume the worst. I think is also important.
Well, I don't see anything wrong with the pause, but I think that it still needs to be spoken because, when a woman doesn't feel like what she wants to talk about is worthy of a discussion, you've put her in a position where the enemy gets into her head and tries to get her to see why things are going. See, he don't respect you. He don't this, he don't that. So, when you take that pause, I feel like you should verbalize it and say, hey, baby, listen, just give me a moment to process this, because I do feel that what you have to say is important. Let her know that what she has to say is important.
Yes, good.
Before you choose to take that pause. And then I think she will be more receptive to say, okay, I got you.
And I think Darrick, I had an issue with shutting down. It was a period where I didn't want to hear it, or I didn't want to talk about it at the time, and I had to move to that point of not taking that pause days.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes pause can go for 2 weeks. That's just too long to go.
Long.
Yeah.
And that creates so much tension. And so I had to learn in my pause that like she said, I have to say, give me a moment to really look at this and how I can effectively communicate to you what I need to say.
And I agree with Ms. Whitfield. I was going to interject, but she said it. We need you to verbalize that, because it's like, if you're not talking to us, and she said the devil plays with your mind. Well, if you're not talking to me, who are you talking to? Like, we're in this together. I need, like, you want me to communicate with you, I need you to communicate with me. So verbalizing and saying, hey, I need a pause period, and then we'll come back and talk about this when we cool down.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That's good. That's good.
All right. Women are detail oriented.
Lord have mercy.
How can men communicate with their wives so that they don't have to piece a puzzle together to try to understand their husband's point of view?
All right, I'm jumping there again, Pastor. Something that I was truly guilty of, and I know with communicating that to your wife, you give them what you think they need to know, and then if there's somebody else, you give them more detail. But for the woman, I guess we need to learn that we need the whole picture. We need to give them everything, such that you can make everything clear. And sometimes if we don't do that, it will lead to distrust, because it seems as if sometimes we're telling one side and we're not telling all. Yeah. We don't want that to happen in our relationship, that we're not trusted, or when we ask something, we only give a part of what is asked of us. And we don't want distrust. We want them to be able to say to us, I trust you, and I can trust you with anything. If I ask you something, I trust you enough that you're going to tell me everything you need to tell me.
Yeah. I know for me, I think one of the mistakes I would make, and probably still make, is not just the detail, but in my head, there's one piece of the detail that's not that important. So I'm not even going to talk about that piece. Right. And it ends up being that piece that you didn't talk about, end up being a critical piece that all of a sudden something doesn't make sense in this. He had mentioned earlier about the devil starts playing on you. When that one piece is left out, because in my mind, there's nothing malfeasance, misfeasance about me withholding. It's just I didn't think it was a critical detail to the overall purpose. That becomes the major bone of contention as to what about this here? And I'm thinking about, I got the end in mind, right? So every little detail to get to the end, I may or may not recall, may or may not bring up, because I'm trying to get to the finish line, the accomplishment that has all of us involved in it, forgetting that, she's on the ride, right? And so it's important to her and important to your spouse that she wants as much as possible, as many details as possible. And the challenge for that is, again, the end in mind, right? So you're trying to get there, and what I would say the key is, man, just trust me. Right? Just trust me. I don't know what I'm doing. Just trust me. And it makes sense for me to say, trust me, because I believe I heard from God. I believe I know what I'm doing based on what God told me to do. Just trust me. And so what I would do is, when she would ask questions, I would deem her questions to be her doubting me. And so then that will become an argument. Like, well, come on, man. Like, I trust me on this. And it wasn't that she was doubting me as much as she's just trying to understand better what's going on. There's a quote I saw years ago. The author's unknown. The quote would say, listen with the intent to understand, not with the intent to respond. And I wouldn't really understand what she was saying, because I was so quick to respond back to what she was saying. I was hearing it and reacting to what she was saying. I'm like, man, just trust me. I got this. We'll get to the finish line, and it's a time of celebration. And I'm noticing that she's either fake celebrating or not at all, because, you know, it's she's still holding on to, there was a piece there that I didn't get. And I think for guys, because everything for us most time is competitive, right? That we don't realize. I know me, one of my greatest challenges is I don't pause long enough to enjoy the moment. I'm always on to the next thing. And in that detail piece, because that piece to me was not that important to overall point, I don't even want to address it. And for some time with Kia, that's the piece she wants to spend time on. I'm like, man, let's just move on from that.
Yeah. And again, it's that when we hold back that detail, we're not allowing them a chance to really see what we're seeing through our lenses. We're going to share that.
Yeah.
Because they want to know the what, the whens, the whys, and the hows.
Yeah. And
it's important for them to know.
I know for me, I made a critical mistake withholding a detail on something. Again, I thought it just wasn't that important. But I in a conversation with someone else, I shared the details.
Mm-hmm.
And in conversation, she overheard this person, and I think it was a male counterpart, but she overheard it. And it was a piece that was shared in that conversation to which I didn't share with her. And, you know, for me, I thought she was harping on that I didn't tell her first, which probably was a point. The big point was that I thought enough of that other person to tell them the piece that I didn't tell her. And it took me a long time to really understand what the issue was. Like, man, why does it matter? And, you know, it's one of those things where it became, for me, I'm not hearing what she's saying.
Right.
Because, you know, for me, like, man, what you tripping for? And I wouldn't hear what she was saying. And, you know, and then it's funny, she had the right to be upset. I was the one that shut down, because I took what she was doing as, man, like, you don't even believe in me. Yeah. And my shutdown used to be weeks, right? She'd always say, you're shifting the mood in the house. The kids walking around wondering what's wrong with daddy.
You're the thermostat in the house. Yeah.
Be free, sister.
I am.
Be free. She always says that, though. It's like, you're the thermostat now. I'm trying to hear that.
Yeah, you do.
Well, you know, here's the thing. You know, a lot of times, you know, when we call each other our best friend,
mm-hmm.
Women mean that literally.
Yes, ma'am.
Literally.
And, you know, I can't say that a man means that literally, because there's nothing that we cannot say to our best friend.
Yeah.
And when we come in, we tell it all. And so, see, when we walk up on our spouse talking to somebody else about something that they haven't even said to us, it's a very hurting thing. It hurts us, and it doesn't hurt us surfacely. It hurts us to our heart.
That's good.
And that's what we want you all to be able to hear and feel what we're feeling when we feel that you are leaving us out on important details that you don't think are important to you, but they're important to us. And I know it's a learning thing, because it's a part of communication. And as we, you know, grow in our marriage, it should get better.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, you know, you just think that what you're doing is nothing wrong with what you're doing, but you have to think about how it's affecting your spouse, because men and women are built totally different.
Man, that's really good.
How we process things is totally different from the way that you all process things. How we look at things is totally different. How you know, you said it wasn't an important detail to you, but it was important enough for you to tell somebody else.
Yeah.
And it should have been important enough to tell your wife as well.
And if the tables were turned, like if we flipped it, I think the man would be offended too.
You're right.
Not as much as we are, but I think they would be offended too, that you thought enough of that person to tell them first and not come and tell me.
And might even use the terminology, well, why did you hide that from me?
Yeah. And I would argue, though, on that point, that I don't know if it would not hurt us as much. The difference is, as men, we just ain't gonna tell you, right? We're gonna act like it didn't bother us. We're gonna process it, internalize it, and then sit on it. And that may even lead to a shutdown, right?
Exactly.
Because You done sat it with it for a long time. Now we're processing, and then we start thinking, well, what else haven't you told me? Like this whole litany of things start taking place because we're just not going, for the most part, we're not going to divulge that information. Let you know it got to that point. The point you make about the best friend piece, I think, is so key. So, Takia and I have been together since college. And I say to anybody, like my wife's my best friend. And I believe that I tell her everything. But you made a really good point, right? Because, when a man says it, right, versus when a woman says it, that's critical in that regard, because it means something, right? I mean, like, but with fellas, like we can have a lot of bros, right? We just, we hang out a lot of people, and we just say, man, I'm friendly with everybody, but I ain't friends with everybody. Like we can categorize it in that regard to the depth. I got people in my life who I'm very, very close with. I've been close with for a long time as men, who I would not tell them to this day anything of detail of importance, but they're very close brothers of mine. I not tell them detailed stuff. And for the most part, Kid will say they see me as the person they would call for counsel and for advice. I don't do that same thing in return. And so when I say she's my best friend, and that's a good point to make, because it means something even the more to her. And I think it means the same to me, but the actions matter. I think that's key.
The actions for us may be a little different. And again, as part of the growth process, because we hear that from them so often. My husband is my best friend, and like I say, we'll hold back sometimes. But I've learned in these 42 years that she is it. She's it, and so I can be open to say and tell her anything. So why hold back? Just go ahead and put it up, lay all the cards on the table.
Hey, brother. Yeah.
Put all the aces down, the deuces.
Here's my hand. Can we win a game with this? I got it. Yeah.
So that means you have a winning hand every time, because you're open.
Sir.
And that's the thing, that we're open about any and everything. Personal, job related, church related. I can share it.
Yes, sir.
And I can know that it stays right there.
That's good. That's really good. That's really good.
Okay. Well, how should a wife deal with her husband who is avoiding a difficult discussion that he is unwilling to have?
Oh, that's so good. So I'll jump first on this one, because we actually dealt with this during COVID. It's whenever you deal with trauma in your life, especially as a childhood, you can convince yourself that you've outgrown it. I have this phrase I say to people, that distance does not equate to deliverance, right? And so you think because you moved away from the source of whatever that trauma was, that you delivered from it, and it resurrects itself. And I had that encounter when my dad got sick, and I had to go tend to him at the hospital. All these old memories of my childhood, him not being there, or just the things that we went through, really like hit me at one time as I'm standing in the hospital lobby area. Now I'm going upstairs to tend to a father who some of my memories weren't the best about him. And it was a hard point. And I remember calling her, and she called Dr. Faye. And when I got home, she said to me, she was like, you need to go to a therapist. And that was hard to hear, right? Because I'm a pastor and a businessman and things of that nature. And, it was, and her point was, all that's great, but you got some things you need to get some resolution to. And what I had done a really good job of for years is suppressing.
Yes, sir.
And I always say to people now, man, anything that you suppress will become volcanic.
Ooh.
It's going to be an eruption. And what was happening was my eruptions, and those eruptions are not scheduled, they're not planned, but whomever's the closest to you usually gets the eruption. And so there were times he and I will be in conversation, and she would say something. To this day, if you raise your voice at me, I'm going to respond, right? I take it very offensively because, again, childhood trauma. And one day we're having a conversation, and I felt like her voice went up one octave too many. And I just kind of like, hold on, man, like, you can check your voice. And as she was saying these things to me, she was giving me examples of why she thought I needed to go to a therapist. And that was hard to handle because, for me, therapist meant I'm failing as a man. I'm failing as a husband, as a father. I cannot do that. And what she was saying to me, she finally said, listen, it's not about that. Like, I love you enough to tell you, you need this. And, thank God it's been 2 years. I go to a therapist regularly, and, it's hard to sit through and deal with those things, but it's also necessary. And so what I would say to any wife who's listening is going back to what was said before from my Whitfield about your spouse being your best friend. As a best friend, you have been empowered by the other best friend to be able to say even what they don't want to hear you say. And because you love that person enough, you're not saying it to hurt that person. You're saying it for the betterment, because a better them makes a better y'all. Right.
That's
and
right.
That was the main thing was me realizing not just what she said was important, but who was saying it was even more important. And she was saying, because she recognized that when you're hurting and when you're bleeding and when you're in pain, it affects me, it affects us. And so I would tell any wife, of course, pray about it and let God lead, but also remember the position of power you have in that marriage with that person. And nobody's going to love him outside of God like you're going to love him. And I think that's important when you approach a situation, that you remember that position. And at some point, we're going to hear you.
Yeah. And I agree. You just said what I was going to say. When you get to that point where they're not able to deal with that difficult discussion, I would say for that wife that you soak him in prayer.
Mm-hmm.
That you just and then let him know, not going into detail, but saying to your spouse, there's something that's bothering you. That's something that you're not willing to talk about at this time. But I pray that in time, I'm asking God to cover you, that when that time comes, that you're able to open up and speak to your best friend.
Yeah.
And so just know that I'm covering you in prayer as you go through this process.
And let me just add one more piece of that I wanted to say to the women of God, because I learned this with my wife. To every wife that's listening, my words to you is trust the God that speaks to you, right? Because whenever we as your husband aren't listening or responding swiftly enough and obediently enough, I think it's important for you to recognize and realize that that God speaks to you, and when God speaks to you, you want to obediently respond in that regard. And sometimes I know with my wife, she would come say things to me I didn't want to hear, and I would completely shut her down. And I later learned, walking, whatever God says, even if it's going to hurt,
yes, sir,
it's going to convict me, I need you to be obedient in that regard, versus you being Monday morning quarterback and you saying after the fact what should have been said. And so to every wife, trust the God that speaks to you on that matter.
Well, all right, I'm gonna move to my last one.
Yes, ma'am.
When something is pressing on the wife's heart to talk about, something she really needs her husband to tap into with how a situation makes her feel. How can she get her husband to be receptive to not only hear her, but feel her pain as well?
So this question here, I'm glad it was the last question, because this is the question where the most improvement I'm trying to make. Right? Because men by nature are fixers. And so we're not even hearing what's being said. We're trying to fix the problem.
Yes, sir.
And there are times when Kia will be having conversations, and I'm hearing her talking, but I've already fixed the situation. And what I'm learning is hearing her and hearing her voice, letting her speak is as important, if not more important, than me trying to fix it. And so I think it's creating, not just saying it, but displaying to your spouse, to your wife, how interested you are into what's being said, but also how interested you're in the process that she's going through to get to whatever that resolve looks like, and understanding that process may define your role unlike you want your role to be defined. And for me, that's been the hard thing for me is I don't like to see my wife cry. I like to see my wife hurt. And so the thought of me not being able to fix that situation is a challenge. And sometimes I've attempted to fix things and made it worse, right? Because I heard her talking, but I had already fixed the situation. And so I think it's creating that safe space. But also, here's a great one: asking the question, okay, in this conversation, am I listening? Am I helping you fix a situation? And then ask another question. Okay, so what's my role in this situation? And for brothers, I know for me, that's a challenge, right? because I know what my role is, and I'm going to force my role into this situation versus me asking her what that role is. And so that's led to a lot of challenges for me, because I don't want to see her hurting or grieving. And so while I fixed the problem, I didn't hear her heart. And I'm trying to make sure I hear her heart, not always try to fix the problem.
You know, and a lot of times it's as easy as just looking at your wife's face.
It tells a lot.
And when it says a lot, you know, and my thing is, you know, when you've allowed yourself to go off track because you're choosing to react versus respond, it should be a draw in. The love for her should be a draw in to look at her face.
Yes, ma'am.
Her face is going to tell the story.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, you know, at this point, do you continue in the direction that you are going? Or do you try to retract and say, baby, what can I do?
Yes,
I don't like what I am, right? You know, I don't like what I'm seeing right now on your face. What can I do to help correct the problem? Give her the opportunity to talk to you, because you pretty much shut her down.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes,
And it's sitting on her face.
yes, ma'am.
Like, I don't know what to say to this man, because it's evident he's not listening to me. He doesn't feel my heart. He doesn't hear my heart. He's not trying to listen to me. What do I do? But I promise you, if you look, I'm talking to any husband now.
Yes, ma'am.
I promise you, if you look in your wife's face, if
Man,
she has not changed the tone of her voice, you can see the pain all over her face. And it does not mean to walk away like, you making more out of that than it ought to be. No, it is to now turn to her and try to fix that issue. Get it back on track before the devil get in her head.
Yeah,
ma'am.
Baby, I did not mean for it to come out like that. Listen, just give me a minute, and then we're gonna come back and just let me process this. You know,
That's a song that says, if a picture can paint 1,000 words, that means if I could see that pain that my spouse is experiencing, then I need to make it my business to hear her heart. Now, it's not enough to listen, but it takes more to hear.
Yes, sir.
What the heart is saying to us.
Yes,
and I think that's so important to a relationship. We got to make sure that we keep things moving in a positive way, such that we hear each other's heart, which is so important in a marriage. So we are coming to the end of our show.
But McGhee wanted to say something, baby.
Really quick. And even when you can't talk face to face, listen to her voice.
Yeah.
Her voice may change. It may not go up. You may hear the crackling in her voice, because that means the tears are flowing. So sometimes
she's trying to hold it.
Yeah, she's crying. So even when you can't see her face to face and she calls you, hear her voice.
You hear it, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Close us out, doctor.
We are at the end of our show. And as we close today's segment, we'd like to let you know how you can reach us. Contact us, inbox us at Danny and Rhoda Whitfield or Marriage Takes Work on Facebook. You can email us at marriagetakeswork2016@gmail.com.
And do us a favor and share this broadcast with your friends, married and single. With that being said, we'd like to thank our special guest, Elder Darrick and First Lady Takia McGhee, for joining us here on Marriage Takes Work, and remind you, our listening and viewing audience, to stay the course and be blessed. This segment of Marriage Takes Work has been brought to you by Strategic Inflection Point.
Are you a pastor, business owner, manager, or a person who desires to grow to one of these positions? If you answer yes, then Strategic Inflection Point has the services necessary to assist you. We are a full-service professional development company. Please visit our website at www.strategicinflectionpoint.com to learn more about us. There's no need for you to struggle growing as a person, a professional, a pastor, or a business. We are focused on taking you from impasse to implementation. Again, visit our website at www.strategicinflectionpoint.com, or you can contact the company's president by email
at Darrick at strategicinflectionpoint.com.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you wish to contact us, inbox us at Marriage Takes Work on Facebook.
And don't forget to join us next week, same time, for another segment of Marriage Takes Work. Remember to love hard
And work your marriage.